All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our July webinar. Today, we have Anvil Media's SEO team. I am Rachel McMahon. I'm the SEO strategist here at Anvil. I also have my colleague, Dorian Marshall here, the SEO specialist at Anvil. And today, we are going to be covering some local search best practices and trends for you all today. If you have any questions, anything that comes up, please feel free to shout them out, use the chat. And at the end of the deck, we'll recap some of the major points that we cover throughout the webinar today. And be sure to check out our YouTube channel later on, as we will be posting the webinar replay at a later point today. So without further ado, we will jump into our agenda, where we will talk about what local SEO is and why it's important. We'll talk about some best practices to keep in mind, some elements that you really want to focus on when you are talking about local SEO. And then we'll also cover some tools that you'll want to keep in mind as well, some things that we use within the Anvil Media team that really make our lives a lot easier, and they're very helpful tools to have within your arsenal as well. So to start, what is local SEO, why it's important? We'll give you a really quick overview of all of the things that pertain to local SEO and why we are really focused on it within the current times in the SEO world. So whenever we are talking about local SEO, we're essentially talking about search engine optimization strategies that are focused on improving the visibility of either your business, your services, or your products within a targeted service area. And when you are accomplishing that, you will be improving your local visibility within search engines like Google. So we are really focused on improving the organic visibility of your business, of your service, of your products within your targeted service area. And these days, we have a few different local SEO ranking factors. So these are different elements that will ultimately impact how visible your business becomes on Google. And we'll be going into more detail on each of these components throughout the deck. But really what you can see is things like Google My Business is a pretty hefty component to local ranking factors these days, your reviews, on-page signals. So we have several different opportunities to really focus on that will ultimately help improve your local visibility. And moving on to one of the main questions that comes up in the discussion of local SEO is why it is even important and something to pay attention to. And basically, the location of the searcher is one of the main considerations that Google is ranking for. And due to the continuous development of Google's search algorithm, and along with the advancement of smart devices and virtual assistants, this is really becoming a big ranking result in Google. And there is also a big impact of COVID recently and how it has impacted the shift towards local businesses, and that has made local SEO increasingly important. And just covering two major misconceptions about local SEO is that it is only for small businesses, whereas local SEO is a priority for any business with a targeted service area, whether your business has one location or 100 or however many. And large retailers like Home Depot and Walmart do utilize local SEO strategies for each location, and that just signifies how important it is for even just the smallest or largest of businesses. And then another one is that local SEO only applies to brick and mortar locations. So you don't need to have a traditional street side business to use local SEO. Service-based businesses should absolutely incorporate local SEO into their digital marketing initiatives, and that will really help maximize visibility within its particular service area. And we are covering also the map pack. It's also known as the local pack, and it is a very prominent position in Google's search results. And it is a set of 3 to 4 local businesses, and that displays within Google Maps at the very top of search results pages. And this earns a lot more visibility and engagement for those businesses. And over half of all web traffic comes from mobile devices, which means presence in the map pack is more important than ever right now. And moving on to some local SEO best practices, we will cover the most effective local SEO optimization tactics in the following slides. For the first one, we are covering probably the most important is a Google business profile.
It displays the most important information and details about your business. I'm sure everyone has seen a Google pop up on their search results, and it provides a lot of extensive information that is highly effective to gain the attention of searchers on Google. Basically, it provides almost exactly what they're looking for in a very condensed space, and local SEO does really begin with the Google business profile, and it provides definitely the greatest impact to your local SEO performance. And we have some examples over there as well, as you can tell, just lists all of the most important information and gives searchers in a very organized manner. More information on Google business profiles. It fully optimizes each listing with as much information as possible, and that is super important to keep in mind. So listings that are lacking or missing information will most likely get passed up by both Google's algorithm and searchers, which means rankings will suffer. So making sure it is fully optimized with as much information is one of their best practices for Google business profiles. And also creating a fully optimized listing for each brick and mortar location that you have. So if you do own a service-based business, your listing should be your office, and you also should not create listings for virtual offices. And if your office is also your home, you can hide your address to avoid publicly displaying it to Google search. And for businesses with multiple listings, ensure that the business name is consistent throughout each profile, just to ensure that the searchers are receiving accurate information every time. And then you should also be regularly monitoring and updating each with current information and photos, just to make sure everything is staying up to date. And again, you're providing searchers with the most accurate and up-to-date information on your business. Also, you do not need to stuff keywords into your business name. Just again, keep everything super consistent here for searchers, and that will really help optimize your Google business.
Awesome. So when it comes to actually optimizing your Google business profile, you'll probably see there are several different elements that you have at your disposal. And frankly, Google doesn't do a real good job of explaining what these elements are or how you can best utilize them. And so we'll go through each of these to make sure you have a full understanding of their impact and their purpose and what you should really do with each of these Google business profile elements. So the first is pretty obvious, but the reviews are a crucial component to your Google business profile. We'll talk about the importance of reviews later on, but basically the goal here is to earn reviews on a regular basis. So we don't want to have like 1 to 2 reviews from 2018. You really want to try and keep a consistent review cadence that you're earning over a period of time, so that way users understand that you are still providing a positive experience to people. And when you receive a review, it's really recommended to respond to each review, whether it's good or bad. So it could be just a quick thank you for your review, or if it's a bad review, you can provide some information on how people can reach out to you, give that customer some context or just a response in general. So that way you're providing the support all of your customers need. When it comes to photos, these are actually elements of your Google business profile that people will probably mostly engage with. They're a great way to showcase your brand, your services, your products to customers. So keep those updated on a regular basis. It doesn't need to be every month. It could just be whenever you have a new batch of photos, you can simply upload those to your Google business profile. The third is your business category. So this is the primary category of your Google business profile listing. And we first want to make sure that it's consistent across all listings. So if you have multiple locations and multiple business profiles, you want to make sure that the primary category is consistent across all of those to make sure that you're painting a solid picture of what your brand is. And there's also the ability to set secondary categories as well. So for Anvil Media, we have different categories for digital marketing, for PR, but basically we have categories that represent what our business actually is. So don't be afraid to utilize secondary categories as well. We also have services. So this is just a straight list of each of the services you offer. And these are fully customizable depending on the information you want to provide. So you can list hundreds of services, you can list 10 services, but basically the goal here is to make sure that you provide as much information as possible about what services you provide, because if somebody is searching for a particular service within a specific area, one of the first things Google actually crawl is that services list to see if you provide something that the user is looking for. So the services section is pretty important. The service area is also something that's really important, and frankly, this is something that is often misunderstood by a lot of people that use Google Business Profile, actually to the fault of Google itself, because again, Google doesn't really give you a solid understanding of how to best utilize this component of Google Business Profile. Basically, with the service area, you can enter in up to 20 individual locations to represent an area that your business would service. So for example, Anvil Media, we are located within Portland, Oregon, but our service area in Google Business Profile contains things like Vancouver, Washington, Hillsborough, Clackamas County, Multnomah County. So we take care of all of the areas that are surrounding Portland, because we would absolutely service people who are 20 minutes away, 15 minutes away, things like that. So within the service area, you can get as broad or as granular as you would like, but basically utilize this area to build out up to 20 individual locations that best represent what your service area would look like. We also have attributes. So there are several different types of attributes. There are some for health and safety to really provide additional insights about things like COVID protocols. So you can tell people that your staff wear masks, that temperature checks are required. You can also really highlight things like women-owned businesses. You can tell people about your ADA compliance, things like that. And these are really important because they're smaller details, but they could be the deciding factor for somebody, which makes them choose your business over somebody else's. So they can really separate your listing from your competitors that are out there. The business open date can also accomplish that as well. Again, this seems like kind of a smaller detail, but again, in the end, it could be something that really causes a person to choose your business over somebody else's. And so when you set the business open date for each listing, what will happen is whenever your Google Business Profile shows up, somebody will be able to see how long that you've been in business. So customers will typically see something like 25 plus years in business. So you can imagine if you see that versus somebody that doesn't have that much experience, you can see how a customer might be more comfortable choosing your business over somebody else's. So business open dates are also helpful for getting people to come to your business instead of going to your competitors. We also have product highlights. So this is essentially building a product feed directly into your Google Business Profile. Basically, you can incorporate a product photo, the product name, description, pricing. And so not only are you showcasing your product catalog in your Google Business Profile, users can actually click on the product page itself and click through to the exact product page that's on your website, making it very, very easy and straightforward for users to actually purchase that product. So it makes people not only come across your products and understand what products you offer, but again, it just makes it that much more efficient for people to actually purchase what they're looking for. And the very last item that we have are Google Posts. This is essentially like a small social media feed that kind of ties along into your Google Business Profile. And you can post things for updates, deals, promotions, events, pretty much any noteworthy event that you want to showcase to the world, you can do so with Google Posts. It's similar to any social media content where you can have an image, headline, a description, and then you can even incorporate a call to action that would either send somebody to your website, to a booking appointment page, anything that would get the user to do what you are hoping that they accomplish. We have, I see a question in the chat that says, what do you mean when you say category is consistent across all listings? So it could mean listings from Google Business Profile over to Yelp. But in this instance, I'm just strictly referring to Google Business Profile. So for businesses that have multiple locations, those multiple locations are actually going to have individual Google Business Profile listings as well. So it's basically just making sure that each Google Business Profile has the same category. So that way, for example, if Anvil Media, if we had multiple Google Business Profile listings, we wouldn't want one to say that we are a PR company and one to say that we are a digital marketing company, because then if somebody looks at those side by side, there would be a little bit of confusion around what type of service that we offer. So ideally, we would want those both to either say, we are a digital marketing agency and also a PR company, or, you know, whatever the variation of that is. So for this, I was strictly referring to Google Business Profile, but ideally, yeah, if you're talking about like Yelp and some other citations, we do try to stay to the same business category, but sometimes that's a little tricky because different citations will refer to categories differently. So just do your best to remain consistent. All right. And so here is a screenshot that shows the different Google Business Profile, Google My Business components, where they live, and again, kind of highlighting some of those main things that you want to keep in mind. So you can see at the very top where the reviews and the average rating lives. We also have the primary business category here, as well as the description. If you are like a department store, you do have the capability to add in different departments. The health and safety component, these are those attributes that we were talking about where we can get more information about COVID protocol. Up towards the right-hand side, that's where you can see the product feed. So again, you can scroll through the product catalog, see what products are available, and again, you can click on those and then be taken to a page to actually purchase those. And then pretty self-explanatory, but you also have the photos in the bottom right-hand side to get a better understanding of the location, products that are available, things like that. So you can see how holistically this creates a very, very good understanding of what your business is, who your business supports, and all of this information really helps Google understand who your business would best support as well. So whenever Google has that additional understanding, your rating or your rankings will only improve from there. So Google Business Profile is pretty important. And so as I was talking about reviews, we all know how important reviews are important just for the sake of purchasing and just business performance in general. But strictly these days, we're seeing about like 93% of people saying that an online review influenced their decision. So I would be pretty surprised to see that number kind of increase, just because I just know so many people really heavily weigh online reviews that they see. So they're very, very important, not just for the user experience side, but also for the SEO side. So if you are a business that has strong reviews, that's a way to tell Google that you provide a really good customer service, that you provide really good experiences to your customers. So it's a way to really solidify those higher positions over time. So when it comes to earning reviews, the first recommendation is to try and earn them on a regular basis. Again, kind of recapping what I mentioned earlier, let's say you have one listing that has a 5-star rating, but they only have 2 reviews that were from like 2017. That was 5 years ago. I don't really have a way to understand if those are still valid, if they're still providing good experiences to people. But if you do have a listing that has, you know, maybe 150 reviews and they're very current reviews and they're like 4.8, 4.9, that would probably be more valuable to people in the long run. So try to earn reviews on a regular basis to make sure that you accumulate those reviews over time. Again, if you are getting reviews on your Google Business Profile, make sure you respond to them, whether they are good or bad. If you are responding to those reviews, that is telling Google and other search engines that you really care about your customers, and ultimately that will help your business get rewarded by those higher rankings. So even, again, it could be just a quick thank you for your review. That's all it really needs to be. And again, if it's a negative review, it could just be, please reach out to us. We're sorry this happened, something like that. Don't be afraid to ask for reviews, particularly your actual customers. I've run into a lot of business owners who are very hesitant to ask for reviews just because they don't want to be annoying. They don't want to, kind of overstep their bounds, but really your customers are the best way to get those reviews earned over time. And I've found that the best time to request those reviews is immediately after you've gotten a purchase, after you've finished a service, immediately after the transaction or purchase has been completed. That's typically the best time to request the review just because it's top of mind. So try and ask your customers to leave reviews over periods of time. And then do not be afraid of negative reviews. Everybody is going to get a negative review at some point. Don't worry about trying to hide them or trying to get rid of them. Actually, it kind of helps you in the long run if you do have 1 or 2 negative reviews, because that is typically seen as a more trustworthy experience. And Google's not trying to penalize listings that have a few negative reviews. Really what we're looking for is to see how you are responding to those reviews. So do you reach out to the customer? Do you take care of the experience that they had? And do you remedy the situation? Or are you just kind of like brushing the negative review off to the side and not really do anything with it? So do not be afraid to get negative reviews. Don't think that you get a negative review and all of a sudden your rankings are, pushed all the way down to the bottom. That's really not how it works. So all in all, don't be afraid of those negative reviews. All right. The next best practice, that's another probably pretty important component. This is really on-site information, pertains to location pages. So a location page is a page on your website that represents one of your actual locations of your business. And the reason we call it a location page is it's because the page itself is highly optimized and focused on the physical location of that, whatever that area is. And it's fully optimized with location information, keywords, to really make sure that Google has a solid understanding of the location and what the service area looks like. And so these are super important, again, because, they communicate to Google who your business serves and where your business serves within those areas. And then another component of this on the more technical side is the structure of these pages will tell Google which areas of your business are most important. So it really will define your service area to Google. And then when you are sending people from the location page to your other internal service pages, what that ultimately does will pass any SEO authority that these pages acquire, and it will essentially distribute that across your internal pages. So all in all, what that means is just holistically, it will help your entire site rank better in Google. So there's several benefits to building out these location pages. And you can see an example of a Home Depot location page, which if you ever need some guidance on what a location page should look like, I always highly recommend checking out Home Depot, because they always have very, very built out, optimized location pages. And I did see a question in the chat about getting a copy of the presentation deck. We will actually be uploading this to our website. We have a webinar section of our website where you can actually download this deck for free, and we'll be uploading the replay of the webinar as well to YouTube. So if you want to watch it at a later point, you can. So no worries there. Perfect. So when it comes to the information that your location pages should actually have, first is that each physical location should have its own dedicated page. So if you have multiple locations, if, for example, if Anvil had an office in Vancouver, in Salem, and in Portland, each of those locations should have its own dedicated page. So then that way we can make sure that each of those pages is fully optimized for each of those locations. If you are servicing major metro areas like Portland or Seattle, another strategy that works very well is building subpages for popular neighborhoods. So if, for example, we have this URL here that services Chicago, we can also build subpages for different neighborhoods of Chicago, because that way, as mentioned, those subpages are going to help tell Google which locations are most important to your business. And if we have subpages built underneath the main service area of Chicago, those subpages are telling Google, hey, Chicago is a major service area of this business. So if somebody is searching for a service within Chicago that I offer, we will have a better chance of ranking higher because we have those subpages. So it doesn't need to be anything crazy. It could just be the more common, well-known neighborhoods within that metro area, but that's just something that we've seen work very, very well on the local SEO side. The third is to make sure that all of your business information is present. So your business hours, the address, the phone number, and then also kind of beefing up the content with some localized information like mentioning any landmarks, points of interest. We've done SEO work for a company out of New York City. So depending on what location we are talking about, we'll point out things like the Empire State Building or, Hell's Kitchen, things like that. And they've really seen some improved rankings and solidified higher rankings from that content. So any notable landmarks or points of interest will only help strengthen the localized content that you have on the location page. Also adding an embedded map within the location page, so where your location actually is, and giving people the ability to get directions as well. Again, this only applies if you are trying to get people to come to your location. But if you're a service-based business, you don't really need to worry about adding get directions. But if you are a brick and mortar or you're trying to get people to come to your physical location, giving them the ability to get directions for each location page will just make the user experience that much better. And then lastly, make sure to incorporate any links to your high priority internal pages, because again, it will help disperse the SEO equity of that location page throughout the rest of your internal pages. So if we have, for example, like the Fred Meyer Google My Business listing example, so if we're talking about their Portland, Oregon location page, they would probably want to send links to the top category pages like the deli page, the dairy page, things like that. So taking the location page and sending links to your priority category pages or services pages will help holistically improve the rankings of your website. And then lastly, we have the example, again, of the Home Depot location page. So to kind of break it down and point out some of the factors that make it a very strong and valuable location page to have. The first is the actual page URL. So you can see we have Portland in 2 different places. We have the zip code as well. So this URL is really strongly conveying to Google what the service area of this Home Depot location is. We also have what we call breadcrumbs. So we can see the structure of the pages. And again, it's giving some more location information. We have Oregon, we have Portland, we have East Portland Mall. The H1 heading here, we have East Portland Mall again. We have the business information here. We have, again, more location information. We have the map. And then on the right-hand side, these store features, all of these blue text pieces link to the respective page. So we're sending not only the users to these different service pages, but again, we are passing the SEO equity of this location page to these other services pages. So we are helping to improve the local rankings of these individual service pages as well. So again, you can just really see all of these components really working together to really strengthen the local presence of Home Depot within this like East Portland, Oregon location. So location pages are also very, very important. And when you say location pages, are you referring to location landing pages on your website? Yes. Yep, so they are on your website.
And moving on to another really important element to pay attention to in your local SEO initiatives. On-page elements are going to be really important to make sure you are fully optimizing. And this can be elements such as page titles, headings, and content that are on your site. And this is going to help give Google a better understanding of the purpose of the page, its content, and just really the easiest way for Google to fully understand your content, what will relate to searchers. And so it's important to incorporate target service areas within your H1 headings and priority pages. And don't force location information, however, if it doesn't fit, and you don't need to overuse it or stuff location keywords everywhere. Just use it where it makes sense and if possible. And it is just going to be really helpful in communicating with searchers and to search engines exactly where you're servicing and where your primary areas are. And within your page titles, you can include applicable cities or location information as well, as you can see in the screen grab below, and then also the example for Anvil Media. We have Digital Marketing Agency, Portland, Oregon, and then our company name. And that just really flows and makes sense. It's not, looks like it doesn't look out of place or anything. So that is just a really great are building those H1 tags and building content is to make sure you're including location information, but also not forcing it in. And another best practice for local SEO is going to be schema. I will dive more into the specific kind of schema that is important for local SEO, but first, just as a quick overview of what schema is, it is also called structured data or schema markup, and it is additional code added to the back end of web pages, and this will allow search engines to process and understand the contents of a website more effectively. This is essentially a shortcut for Google to understand your content more thoroughly, and it also enhances the appearance of a website on results pages, and that's where you'll see those rich results on your search engine results pages, and that is going to draw more attention and engagement. And local business schema is going to be something you should pay attention to with local SEO as far as schema goes. And each location page for a brick and mortar location should have associated local business schema markup. And again, that is just a specific kind of code that you'll place in the back end of your site. And that includes all the required properties of local business schema that are including the URL to the location page, the postal address, the name of the business, and local business schema also has several other recommended properties. And the more you include, the better results you will get. So just fully optimizing that schema markup is going to be your best bet for appearing in those rich results. And for service-based businesses, you can include a has offer catalog, which includes all services within the code to better communicate to search engines exactly what services and which locations it provides. And again, that is just making sure you're really communicating services and locations and everything really to searchers, and this is going to be pretty crucial for local SEO initiatives, and it is also pretty simple to produce as well. So I know code and everything seems kind of daunting, and it is pretty easy to produce at the end of the day, and just fully optimizing that is really going to help your local SEO and appearing. And moving on to another best practice, we are covering how will users search. So one of the most important things to understand is what and how a user searches within your target location. Obviously, when you're developing keyword research or optimizing your H1 tags or anything, you aren't necessarily doing the searches yourself, so it's kind of hard to connect how searchers are actually going to be looking for your business. And search behavior does gravitate more towards conversational queries, and that is just something to keep in mind when you are optimizing your site. And that just means that is the way a user searches reflects the way a user actually talks, and that can be kind of hard to correlate when you are actually optimizing that content. So paying attention to how you believe the users will actually be searching for your business and using those conversational tones is going to be really important. And this is paying attention to how people refer to the target location. Do you search by the city, the neighborhood, the county, etc.? And do they use me or me when they're searching? Also keep in mind is that if there are any local nicknames, abbreviations, or acronyms that users might be including in the search, and that will be important to include for local information on your site. And that could, if that was in place of the proper name of the city where the business, ensure that you're also paying attention to that and including that in content. So for example, PDX for Portland, that is something that we kind of use interchangeably with Portland across our site, and that just ensures that it is reaching the maximum amount of users and everyone who could be searching PDX as opposed to the proper name of the city. And this is just a quick example of how that paying attention to those kinds of different search tones can affect the results you receive. So we have women's shoes near me and women's shoes Portland, and you can see that it provides different results in Google business listing. So it is important to pay attention how those different searches could impact your results and why it's really important to pay attention to that when you're developing your local SEO strategy.
Perfect. So the next best practice is pertaining to citations, which are simply where there are online mentions of your business name, your business address, and your business phone number. Typically, you'll hear us solidify that into our NAP. So whenever you hear NAP, we're talking about name, address, and phone number. So the goal here is to make sure that your citations are high quality and that they are accurate, because that will ultimately strengthen your company's trustworthiness, and it will paint a more accurate picture of who your business is. And again, whenever you're able to solidify that trustworthiness, whenever you're really able to convey a clear picture to Google, that is when your rankings will start to improve. So if you have outdated information, if your information is inconsistent or incorrect, not only will your users get confused, but search engines will also get confused. They won't be able to validate which information is correct or accurate. So whenever you get confusion, that's when your rankings will ultimately be negatively impacted. So there are hundreds of available citation sites. Back in the day, this is many, many years ago, the goal was to have as many citations as possible. These days, the goal is to have as many high value relative citations as possible. So along with Google Business Profile or Google My Business, we always recommend implementing a citation for Bing, for Yelp, Apple Maps, and obviously utilizing your social media platforms as well to incorporate your business information. Those are really the main citations you need to worry about. BBB is one of them that you could incorporate. If you're like a home repair service, you could probably look at like Home Advisor, but if you are like a travel agent or something like that, you would probably look at hotels.com. So again, you're really focusing on citations that are high value and the citations that make most sense to your industry and to your business as well. And so when it comes to best practices for your citations, again, NAP consistency is key. So you want your business information to appear exactly the same across all listings, across all citations. So one of the examples that is a clear way to further explain this is for Anvil Media. So whether it's Google My Business, whether it's Yelp, whether it is Facebook, we always want the business name to be exactly the same. So we would want to use Anvil Media throughout all of the citations, or Anvil Media Inc. If you have one that says Anvil Media, if you have one that says Anvil Media Inc., there is a slight confusion there about which one is which. And again, we want to avoid any of those confusions for Google's sake. And then even the same thing with the address. So, abbreviating street versus spelling it out. Again, to us, this might seem very, very trivial, but to Google, it's a very small detail that could cause some confusion. We want to avoid having those instances of confusion. So the goal here is to make sure that your NAP is consistent throughout all listings. Online reputation management is another big one. So again, this is just really managing your reviews, responding to any reviews that you've earned, and just making sure that you're consistently earning reviews over time. When it comes to managing your citations, we like to regularly monitor them and update them to make sure that all of the information is accurate and that it's up to date. Sometimes with like Google Business Profile, with Yelp, there are always new things that you can take advantage of or optimize with your listing. And if you don't check in on your citations on a regular basis, you could be missing out on some of those components. So always check in, not just to make sure that everything is accurate and up to date, but also to make sure that there's nothing new that you need to add or that you can take advantage of within your citations as well. And then kind of what I touched on during the last slide, we always want to focus on relative citations. So you don't need to focus on getting citations for everything that exists. You really want to focus on the high quality relative citations that pertain to your business and your industry. So again, if you are like a service-based business, like a plumber or a roofer, you would probably also want to utilize citation sites like Home Advisor, Nextdoor, Angie's List. If you're like a travel-based business, or if you run like, hotel properties, things like that, maybe you would want to also focus on like hotels.com or TripAdvisor. So really focus on what citations make most sense for your industry. And then we also like to touch on social media. These days, social media is a little different for the SEO side of things in that it's more of an indirect impact on your SEO authority and the impact that it has to your rankings. We saw at the very, very beginning the breakdown of 2022 local SEO ranking factors. Social media accounts for about 2% of local ranking factors. So just because it is a very small percentage of what impacts your local SEO rankings, we don't want to actually leave it out because it still can influence local visibility by location targeting. So within Twitter, within Instagram, Facebook, you can promote your products, your services, your business within those local community groups. You can utilize location-specific hashtags on Twitter or Instagram. So there's a way to, again, convey who your business supports and even where your business supports. It's another way to solidify your online reputation. So while we do have the ability on Facebook to earn reviews, a lot of these social media platforms will give people the ability to share their brand experiences. So we'll be able to understand if you generally provide positive experiences or if there are more negative experiences associated with your brand. So it's another way to really solidify your online reputation and then even your brand recognition as well. So not only getting your business name, your business information out there, but more often than not, when somebody is looking to engage with a business for the first time, more often than not, consumers will actually visit the social media profiles first to get a more personal understanding of what that brand looks like, what the brand represents. So social media is also a great way to really solidify and instill that brand recognition with your potential customers and with your audience. And so at the very end of our webinar, we'll talk about some of our favorite local SEO tools. These will help you understand what these tools are and how you can utilize them. And we'll also explain how they kind of tie into some of the best practices we previously talked about. So the first tool that we have is actually one of my favorites. It's called Google Trends. It's a completely free tool. And basically what it does is it tells you the overall trending information of how popular different search queries are, and you can specify the data to show for various regions, languages, and devices. So essentially you're just understanding how popular different keywords are specific to certain locations, languages, and even devices. So for an example, you can see the screenshots at the bottom of the slide. On one hand, we have the search term of pop, and on the other hand, we have the search term of soda. So pop is blue, soda is red. If I am a business in Chicago, I should probably prioritize pop because you can clearly see it's the much more popular term. That's the way people refer to the drink in Chicago. But if I am a business in Los Angeles, I would probably want to stick with soda because you can see soda is the more popular term within Los Angeles. So it's a really easy tool to use if you're trying to figure out which keyword you might want to prioritize over the other. This is an excellent tool to use because you can specify the data to populate depending on what location you are specifically targeting. So it's just a great way to get much more information about the keywords that you're looking to potentially use on your website or even in your Google Business Profile or some of your citations as well. And again, it's a totally free tool, and yeah, it's one of my favorites.
And now we are going to be touching on the Google Keyword Planner. So this is a program within Google Ads, and there's a common misconception that it is only useful for paid initiatives. However, this tool can also be really useful to understand popularity of known keywords for local SEO, and it can be helpful to acquire any new keywords as well. So similar to Google Trends, you can pull keyword data from set regions, languages, and devices. And this one is actually just known very well for being quicker at establishing those local keywords. And yeah, it is a pretty simple tool, but it is super helpful for local SEO and not really only just launching those search campaigns or paid initiatives, but also just discovering new keywords related to your business or service area, and then also seeing the estimates of the searches and how they change over time. We are also looking at Moz here. Moz is a platform that Also super helpful for local SEO and offers a pretty wide variety of local SEO tools. This is one you can kind of use to your advantage with all the different tools and services they offer. But one of the most helpful tools is the online presence tool. This one scans citation sites and notes any area of inaccuracies or even new citation opportunities. And they also have just a lot of profile optimization abilities. You can do a lot of reputation management and really great analytics and reports as well. So this one is just a very large platform that is also super helpful for local SEO. A lot of other SEO initiatives as well, but just managing your local SEO is very easy to do. Finally, looking at BrightLocal as well. This is another pretty robust local SEO tool, and this one is super helpful in tracking local search rankings, performing local SEO audits, cleaning up and building local business listings, and a lot of other services as well. So along with citation management, it also comes with that local search rank checker, and similar to Moz, some online reputation management, again, that auditing, and then you can audit your Google business profile with BrightLocal, and it is really known for being very user-friendly and simple to use, and also pretty cost-effective as well. And yeah, that's a really great SEO tool. And then finally, looking at the conclusion here, just going to touch on all the big main topics that we covered throughout this webinar. So first, we looked at Google's development of its algorithm and how that impacts local SEO. So it's just really important to stay on top of how Google's algorithm is developing and even just development in general as well, along with how the COVID-19 pandemic did impact local SEO and how you have to pay attention nowadays with your Google business profile. And yeah, just staying on top of that significant of local SEO and algorithm and all the changes that are consistently there. Next topic, again, whether your business has one location or hundreds, local SEO should be part of your digital marketing efforts if you have a set service area. So making sure that you are covering all of your bases and not just paying attention to a few locations. And if you do have a lot, it is really important to make sure you are still staying on top of all of those and fully optimizing them to those target service areas and give users the most information about each location in each business. And again, the most effective strategy to improve local visibility is going to be fully optimizing your Google business profile and taking advantage of all of the information you fit in there. This does account for 22% of all local SEO ranking factors. So this one is going to be really crucial to stay on top of and optimize while your business changes, or again, there's even COVID type impacts on Google's algorithm, just making sure you are staying fully optimized there, and that will really help your appearance in search engines and just there's all the crucial information about your business. Next, additional local SEO strategies to utilize include structurally sound and optimized location pages, and then also locally focused on-site elements like page titles, and lastly, validated local business schema markup. So those are a few that are really important to pay attention to, particularly the on-page SEO elements, and just making sure you're not completely stuffing it with local SEO keywords, but just making sure you are communicating exactly where you're servicing and still making it structurally make sense and so easy to users, and that will also just really help to make exactly what you need to users. Then also with the validated local business schema markup, again, that's really going to help your appearance in search results and making sure that the area that you want to service is being targeted to those users looking for your business, and you're also communicating. And so fully optimizing that there is going to be super important. Finally, those tools that we covered are going to be super helpful in your local SEO initiatives. So getting support from Google Trends and Google Keyword Planner, that is really helpful for keyword research, whereas Moz and BrightLocal are going to be really great for citation management and online reputation management. And you can kind of, again, use all of these different services to your advantage depending on what you are looking for and what you are most needing for your particular site or business. But those are a few that are proven to be really helpful and pretty simple to use as well. And just making sure you are fully informed on everything that site, and also getting reports for how those keywords are performing or changing over time so you can stay up to date on any changes that are occurring as well. Awesome. So just to wrap up here, I know Rachel mentioned this earlier, but we are posting this webinar deck on our website, so that will be fully available there, as well as this recording on our YouTube channel. And we also have an upcoming webinar next month as well, and that one is going to be marketing in a Web3 world, so covering blockchains, crypto, and more. And that is going to be done by Kent Lewis, the founder of Anvil Media, and that one will be super interesting to listen to and to join in on if you want to discuss those topics. We are open for questions as well if there are any more questions we can answer. But I'll stop here.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, if you have any last questions before we wrap up, feel free to throw those in the chat. We'll do our best to answer them. If you would like to simply review the content, take a moment to kind of digest the material, you can always reach out to us and we will provide support at a later time. But yeah, as Jordan mentioned, the deck will be available for download on our website. You can go to the webinar page of our website. All of the decks are available for download there. And yeah, look for the recording on our YouTube channel later this afternoon. Thank you all so much for joining us. I hope you all found great value in it, and we will see you hopefully at our August webinar. So have a wonderful day and reach out if you need any additional help. Okay.